Welcome, and thank you for joining me in creating effective visual aids for hybrid and online meetings. My name is Michael Crile, and I will be your host for this training today. Please note, some of the information that you will be reading on the slides will also be read aloud for the visually impaired during this presentation. Dale Ludwig, PhD, the founder and president of Turpin Communication, a presentation and facilitation skills training company founded in 1992, once wrote, "Well-designed visuals do more than provide information. They bring order to the conversation." We have all seen this when we present in Toastmasters. There's more information that we gather in watching someone who gives their presentation with visual aids. We've even seen it in our own work environments many times. Therefore, we need to understand the importance of these visual aids. You may be asking yourself, why am I watching a training on visual aids? I know everything I need to know. Visual aids can significantly enhance comprehension up to 89%. They can provide a clear, easy to understand way of displaying complex information of concepts and data that would take much longer to explain using words alone. The visual aids can quickly capture the attention of audience members, making it easier for presenters to focus their attention on the most important parts of the presentation. And by utilizing visual aids such as graphs, infographics, compelling images, it's much easier for speakers to keep an audience's interest and engagement for extended periods of time, improving the audience's memorability of what you shared. Now let's take a look at what your strategy can be. What type of presentation are you going to give? Will this be a seminar, a training, an office meeting? Who's your target audience? Faculty, colleagues, co-workers, peers in your Toastmasters club, a community outreach that you're doing? And what is your goal? Are you looking to get feedback on results? Are you trying to persuade your attendees to give you funding or interest them in something that interests you? These are all great questions to ask yourself when you're using visual aids. With the strategic plan in mind, we need to turn our attention to the individual visual aids and identify its specific purpose in the context of your presentation. For example, the purpose of this diagram is to explain the key elements of my experimental setup. The purpose of this graph is to demonstrate that our approach improved efficiency. The purpose of this slide is to show that the model successfully reproduces real-world phenomena. Your presentation, your specific visual aid should have one key takeaway, a central message. What do you want your audience to get from the slide or the figure, the graph, the visual aid that you are utilizing? The answer should be expressed in a single sentence. If you're struggling to boil down the key takeaway this much, you might want to consider looking deeper into this and not be so specific about your purpose. I want to share with you a variety of different visual aids that you may or may not have considered utilizing in both virtual presentations and hybrid presentations. Photographs. These are a great way to show about something you appreciate. Videos. They give the same idea. Graphs. These can include bar graphs, line graphs, pie graphs, scatter plots, exponential functions, and tables. Yes, there are a lot of visual aids that you can utilize, and we're just touching the surface. What about charts? You have pie charts, area charts, line charts, flow charts, and funnel charts. If you're not sure about this one, those are those upside down triangle charts. Then there's slideware and Prezi. Slideware. Any software program that is used to create and display slideshows, such as PowerPoint or a Google Drive presentation. Prezi is a digital presentation software that requires users to plot a theme before adding primary image focused content. Prezi can zoom in and out of the presentation to visually demonstrate connections that are not available within other softwares. Picha Kucha. This is a new one for many people. It is a newer and different slideware process with a method of presenting a slide deck of 20 slides, displaying each slide for 20 seconds, advancing automatically, and generally it contains no text. Very much unlike PowerPoint and Google Slides. Because of the restrictive format, Picha Kucha style presentations help the speaker practice editing, pacing, connecting with the audience, focusing on the message, and using images in place of words. And finally, here we have posters and flip charts. And yes, these can be utilized when you are doing virtual presentations. Just remember, they need to be within your camera view. Tables, charts, and graphs must be able to make your point quickly. The longer your audience members are having to read what you have on the screen, the less they're paying attention to what you have to say. Reduce the content of these slides to their essential elements, and make sure that it remains legible from the back of the room. Tables, specifically, have 4 essential elements: a title, column and row headings, and the fields. We see these every time we look at an Excel spreadsheet. No matter what your visual aid is, it should fit on your screen, not projecting off the side or the bottom. Nor should any visual aid be visible to only one audience. Make certain your online audience is able to recognize what visual aid you are utilizing. If it's not able to be seen well enough in your practice, try not to use it. Use something else. When using any type of information, especially in graphs, charts, and tables, use the data that makes your point. Don't include all the extra stuff. Just because it may have been collected, it's not going to matter in the end. If it's important, include it. If it's not, keep it out. Again, they're going to be reading your screen and paying less attention to what you're saying. It should also be one of those items that can stand alone. It can be understood in its entirety without any explanation. One way to assess this is the understandability of your table something that is familiar with colleagues if they review it? That's a great way to take a look at your presentation before you present it to everyone that you have in mind. Let's look at a few more items that are on our list of visual aids. Audio. This can be other talks. This can be any kind of recording that you're utilizing as part of your presentation. Demonstrations. Ever seen anyone give a cooking demonstration or arranging flower demonstration? These are great visual aids. Pictograms. Most of us probably have not heard of this term. They're also known as pictographs, or known in computer language simply as icon symbols. These graphic symbols are used to convey a meaning through their resemblance to a physical object. For example, we've all seen this one. The red circle with a red line on a downward angle usually means no or stop, while a red octagon means stop, and a yellow triangle means yield. How about diagrams? These are very beneficial. Again, keeping the most important information on the screen. That way your audience is listening to you and not focused on the screen the entire presentation. Handouts. Paper or digital. If you're providing digital handouts, do your research and find out if what you are giving out is actually accessible for someone who is visually impaired. Last thing you need is to have to go back and redo what you've already sent out. Props. These are always a great visual aid. Make sure when you are doing your presentations online that they're also visible in your camera appropriately. Whiteboards. You can use your physical whiteboard both for in-person and virtual. However, utilizing a digital whiteboard will definitely be easier for your virtual audience. If your screen's big enough within your presentation room, your audience members in the room should also be able to recognize what you're placing on that whiteboard. And infographics. Infographics are graphic visual representations of information, data, or knowledge intended to be presented quickly and clearly. And they have 7 key components: the story, style, simplicity, size, stats, shareability, and sources. The example I've presented shows 10 goals. We've all seen this chart before in a different format or another. These goals are our Distinguished Club program goals. When we look at them in an infographic, we can identify exactly what we need in each of the goals without a lot of information being presented on the screen. Finally, we're going to discuss 2 more visual aids that are rarely mentioned. Number 1, personal appearance. If you're asked to present somewhere and you're unaware of how you should dress, reach out and ask them. If you have no success in contacting them to find out the dress attire that you should wear, dress your best. Of course, grooming is also one of those things that we should mention, and hopefully everyone remembers grooming goes along with their personal appearance. Next is professionalism. When you're presenting, make sure you're doing it in a professional manner. Eliminate any explicit language, and always keep it to the environment you're in. No matter where you are, even if it's a dining room, keep the language appropriate. That is true professionalism. Let's look at best practices. We're going to talk about the important criteria, the do's and the don'ts, and the helpful hints. Important criteria. Big. Whatever you are utilizing, it should be seen from the back row. I read it as back row certified, and I love that idea. If you're presenting it in the front and you go sit in the back and look at it and you can't make it out, your audience members probably can't either. Make sure it's legible if it's written, or they can see exactly what it is from the back row. Clear. When you're presenting something, especially utilizing visuals, your audience should get it the first time they see it. If there's too much information there, it's probably going to get confusing. Simple. The items should serve to simplify the concepts that they're illustrating. Whatever you are presenting, your visual aid should simplify that same concept. And consistent. They need to reinforce the continuity by using the same visual style. Meaning, if you're presenting data, you wouldn't use pictures, you wouldn't use audio in most cases. You would utilize graphs or charts to present what's needed to be shared. The do's and don'ts. Please make a clear connection between your words and the visual aid for the audience. Do not distract the audience with your visual aid by blocking their view of you or adjusting the visual aid repeatedly while trying to speak. Do speak to your audience, not the whiteboard or the visual aids. Here's some helpful hints with those. Keep your visual aids simple. Use one key idea per slide. Avoid clutter, noise, and overwhelming slides. Use large bold fonts that the audience can read from at least 20 feet from the screen. Utilize contrasting colors to create a dynamic effect. Corresponding colors to unify your presentation. Clip art with permission and sparingly. Edit and proofread each slide with care and caution. Have copies of your visuals available as handouts after the presentation. Check the presentation room beforehand. With any slideware presentation or any presentation involving technology, have a backup plan, such as visuals printed on transparencies or handouts for everyone. There are times we can expect the unexpected, and you should expect the unexpected when it comes to electronics. There are times where equipment fails and there are interface compatibility problems. In short, your internet's not working. Have a backup plan for everything you're presenting for. In putting together this presentation, I came across a quote from John W. Tukey. He was a chemist, educator, information scientist, and data analyst. He wrote, "The greatest value of a picture is when it forces us to notice what we never expected to see." Now we're going to look at written considerations as well as some organization information. Things to consider when using text in your visual aids. Your fonts need to be legible for your entire audience. Everyone that's viewing your screen needs to be able to read it. When creating any digital presentation, review it before you present it. This means check this presentation out on a larger screen before you give the presentation. Most laptops have an average screen size of 14 inches. If you're utilizing a smaller font, there's a chance that that smaller font may come out blurred on a larger screen. You also need to make sure that your style, the font itself, is clean and easy to read. 3 great clean fonts: Garamond, Source Sans Pro, and Times New Roman. They minimize any extra points that cause blurriness in a font. Organization. We're going to first talk about the location. For those who utilize Zoom for most of your online meetings, you'll notice that the camera view goes to the right-hand side of the screen when someone's presenting a digital presentation, in most cases. And in that presentation of those camera views, you'll see that there are 4 pictures. To avoid missing any information from your presentation, open up your ruler on your view drop-down menu when you're putting your slides together, and make sure that everything that you want presented stays to the left-hand side of the 3-inch right vertical marker, meaning you have 6-inch to 0 and 0 to 6-inch. On your right-hand side, you do not want anything beyond that 3-inch marker. That is where your camera views sit. Anything behind there will be missed in your presentation. Then there's the design. By keeping your design simple, you will keep your audience's attention on you. They will listen to you more, and they will be able to take in more information than what they could if you had everything written out. Now I'd like to share a couple of additional considerations. The placement of your visuals is extremely important. As we say in Toastmasters, never leave the lectern unattended. If you have your visual aids several feet to the side, when you go to retrieve them, you're leaving the virtual lectern and leaving your audience without your presence, depending on your camera's location. Utilizing digital presentations such as slideware, we need to be aware of colors. Do some research for yourself. Find what colors complement and what colors don't work with each other. This is important in giving presentations. Utilizing black lettering on blue backgrounds, not a smart choice. It can be drowned out, especially for those who may be dealing with color blindness. Patterns. Your background should have no patterns. Any patterns that you might have should just be simple, such as the one on this screen or the one on the slides within this presentation. Very few items as the patterns for the presentation. The background, keep it a simplified series of colors that complement each other. Try to keep large patterns that are full-size screen away from your presentation. They detract from what you are presenting and the information you are giving. And also be considerate of the audience that you have. If you realize that there are audience members who have color blindness, explore what they can and cannot see as well. This will allow you to be able to make your transitions easier in your presentations with them in the room. Here are my final thoughts. Effective visual aids in presentations are easy for your audience to digest quickly, and they enhance what you have to say instead of detracting from it. There are lots of visual aid choices. You can use one, you can use many. It's up to you, and it's also up to the presentation you're giving. Be mindful of how much you use for the presentation itself. In conclusion, you've had the opportunity to learn about the importance and reasons for utilizing visual aids, the variety of visual aids available for both virtual and hybrid presentations, and various ideas to consider when utilizing visual aids. If you would like more information or would like to find out more from the resources, please feel free to visit my blog at michaelcrile.lmft.wixsite.com. The website link will be in the thank you page. Thank you for taking the time to view this training. I hope the information here has been helpful and will be beneficial for you in your Toastmasters and outside of Toastmasters presentations that you provide. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach me at my blog, or you can email me at michael.crile.lmft@gmail.com. Have a wonderful day.